About 8 leagues by sea and 6 by land, I found a place that I had seen before on the feast day of St. Augustine, and it is just short of 30 degrees and a half and 7 from there. Here, I disembarked 200 soldiers, and on the 7th of September, 3 small vessels arrived with another 300, plus the husbands with their wives and children. And I went ashore and claimed possession in the name of your majesty. And I was sworn into office by the captains and officials as governor, captain general, and adelantado of this land and coast, according to the provisions of your majesty.
On August 28, 1565, Spanish Admiral Pedro Menendez de Aviles first sighted land in Florida. On September 8th, under orders from the Crown of Spain, Menendez claimed this settlement, San Augustine, for God and King. But Menendez and his settlers soon found that they were unexpected guests.
Originally, the expedition to go ahead and start this colony starts out as a true colonial expedition. We're going to go out there, we're going to put some people there. But what happens is about 6 weeks before they're going to make the move up here, they find out about the French already being here inside the mouth of the St. Johns River with Fort Caroline, and it changes the complexion of the expedition radically from being a colonial expedition to being one of a military expedition to try to dig the French out.
Foreign competition wasn't the only difficulty that the settlement faced. Distance from home, unfamiliar natives, and natural disasters all barraged the settlers with challenges. The settlers' biggest problem, however, lay in the fort itself.
Original fortification, wooden stockade structure built by the Spanish. Actually, it's one of the first 9 wooden fortifications the Spanish have here in St. Augustine. All of them end up being destroyed either by storms, rot, fire, either burned by the soldiers who are stationed here, or burned by whoever's invading, or literally just abandoned.
For over 100 years, St. Augustine guarded to their tenuous hold in La Florida with the most bare bones of defenses. It wasn't until 1668, when English pirate Robert Searles besieged the town and took hostages to be ransomed, that the Spanish crown took action to remedy the settlers' plight. It was here that St. Augustine's luck finally changed. After the vulnerability shown at Robert Searles' sack of St. Augustine, the Spanish crown scrambled to re-establish the dignity of their settlement in La Florida. Queen Regent Mariana ordered the construction of a stone fortification to deter any future threat of attack.
The Spanish that were here had been asking for years for a stone fortification to be built. It just came down to where they were going to get the money and how they were going to go ahead and end up building it.
The man in charge of the project, Sergeant Major Don Manuel de Sendoya, was quickly able to answer the question of how the proposed fort was to be built.
Coquina is a very unusual stone. Last time I checked, there are only 4 places in the world you can find it. The only place in North America is along the eastern seaboard of the United States.
Coquina, Spanish for small shells, was the Spaniards' equivalent of striking gold. Enlisting the labor of Native Americans, African slaves, and stonemasons from Havana, Cuba, Coquina was cut from the King's Quarry on neighboring Anastasia Island and sent across Matanzas Bay by raft to the mainland.
Coquina is a sedimentary rock per se, except that it is made of all the crushed shells and some sand and any other local silica and other kinds of materials which are available in earth crust. So this coquina was formed by weight of the earth of all the shell rocks which have been crushed, and individual crushed shells were just held together with some locally poor bonding.
In a lot of ways, Castillo was overbuilt. I mean, the foundation course all the way around is 18 feet thick. The main gallery level we are now, the walls are anywhere from 12 to 17 feet thick, solid stone block. So by European standards, it's really overbuilt.
The unique behavior of Coquina when the cannonball impacted, instead of shattering, large cracks forming, huge debris ejecting off, Coquina absorbed the ball as if it's a sponge, like foam.
The Spanish didn't realize beforehand that this local shellstone held these seemingly magical characteristics, but they certainly reaped the benefits of its effectiveness in ballistic defense. The Castillo de San Marcos still stands solid today, surviving over 300 years without ever being forcefully taken.
I don't think Spanish understood the effectiveness of this coquina against cannonballs. It so happened it's naturally available here, and they were just lucky that the coquina behaved the way it did, and otherwise it would have changed the history of Florida.
Coquina was so abundant that it was used in many buildings in the area, including the island's lighthouse, the city gates, and many residences that give testament to the unique properties of the stone.
There's a lot of confusion as to why the Spanish built out of Coquina. A lot of our visitors hear a story that it was built out of this stone because of how well it worked against artillery fire, when in fact the reason why the Spanish built out of Coquina is it's the only rock around here to build with.
With the city's survival more likely than ever, St. Augustine was able to settle into its role as a quaint coastal spot. However, this sleepy little town would never be able to fade into comfortable obscurity. Wealthy tourists from the north would make this their summer vacation spot for the favorable climate and the beautiful beaches. After visiting St. Augustine in the winter of 1884, Henry Flagler decided to invest his time and resources into building hotels in the area. The Ponce de Leon Hotel opened in 1887, followed by the purchase of Franklin Smith's Casa Monica Hotel, which was renamed Hotel Cordova.
St. Augustine had this storied Spanish past, and so it was a great place to relocate what they had seen in Spain, or even the things perhaps they'd seen in Venice, to make their own version of it. So it's not a copy of what they saw in Europe. It is a version of it with what they saw in Europe as the inspiration. And then, of course, he incorporated Coquina into his concrete mixture.
There is no question that Flagler changed St. Augustine and changed Florida. Now, he also is largely responsible for the city surviving economically because it was coming out of post-Reconstruction America. People were able to be employed here at the hotels. The businesses that were nearby, people built residence here, so it was stimulating the construction trades. So he's very much largely responsible for building the city that we have today.
Throughout the rise and fall of the city's tourism industry, the historical Coquina building stood as a constant reminder of its tradition and Spanish roots.
Coquina is a contributing factor to the quality of the settlement. The building material at that time was wood, so Coquina was the first permanent material that was found to be native here from which they could build.
St. Augustine is a unique place. The environment is very much the same. St. Augustine, for many reasons, at least the downtown and the old part of it, remained pretty much the same size it was for hundreds of years. So it has that old look to it. It has that old size, which I think is really important. So you might have a house built 2 or 3 years ago, but it's on a street that was laid out in the early 1600s.
It is rare, it's singular, it is one of a kind. It brings them here and it resonates with people. It is unique, it's small, but it has the same sense of sophistication and cosmopolitan draw that it has had for 200 years.
450 years later, St. Augustine proudly stands as the nation's oldest continually occupied European city. Boasting pride in their roots and embracing the changes that come with the past generations, St. Augustine is a city of pioneers that will continue to celebrate their unique and hard-earned heritage well into the future.